Very happy to be joined by Evan Levy today on the topic of data strategy here in TDWI Orlando. Evan is an acknowledged consultant and speaker in the areas of enterprise data strategy, data management, and systems integration. He has spent his career leading both practitioners and executives in delivering a range of data management and analytics solutions. Evan's currently a partner at Integral Data LLC, a boutique consulting firm focused on helping clients in the areas of data management, data strategy, and analytics. And Evan has been published in a wide array of industry magazines and is a speaker at industry events and adjunct professor at the University of Maryland. Welcome, Evan, and thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure being here.
I know I just introduced you, gave you a nice little bio there, but perhaps maybe you can expand a little bit on what it is that you do.
I used to joke for many years I help people solve problems with data, and it's purposely a double meaning, which is help folks fix their data problems, but also help them use data to fix business problems. So I spend most of my time in an advisory role, various clients. I'm a consultant. I've had management consulting firm, worked for a software company, worked in the healthcare industry, all data and data-oriented analytic type work. So yeah, that's the space that I've been in. I've been teaching here at TWI for, I'm embarrassed to say, almost 20 years, or afraid to say, to show my age, but I think people can tell, given the lack of hair, that I'm no longer 25.
Sure. Well, we certainly appreciate you being a part of the TWI instructors, and one of the highest rated and most requested instructors, so we continue to see that time and time again. So the topic today that we're going to be discussing is data strategy. Lots of folks are focused on developing a data strategy right now. Can you explain what that is? What is a data strategy?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at most companies, they have a business strategy. Who is it that we want to sell to? What is it that we want to sell? How much money do we want to make? What are our goals? What are our objectives? And how will we get there? Most organizations actually have IT strategies from a perspective of tooling, platforms. They, in fact, may have an analytics strategy. What's the type of analysis capabilities we want to give to our end users? What they rarely have is, okay, how do we make all that happen? What about the data? So the whole premise of a data strategy is really about what is that we need to put in place so the data can be more accessible, findable, and usable. And what are the things we need to put in place to make that possible? Very often you find that a data strategy is very focused on analytics, or it's focused on maybe even a subset of that, just reporting. Really, a data strategy should be about how do we make sure that this asset, if in fact it's a company asset, what's the plan, what's the roadmap, what are our objectives of ensuring that people have access to this stuff? And in much the same way as companies will have a real estate or a building strategy because they know how many people they're going to hire or where they need to be, all too often what you find is data is often treated more like a byproduct of an application. It's almost, okay, it's come out of this application, now where do we put it? Versus, wait a second, if it's truly an asset, what is the plan that we make it available, that people can find it, as I said, find it and use it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly companies are trying to delve into that a little bit deeper as the years progress here. Why do you think building a data strategy has become the top of mind aspect for companies?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons that it's become top of mind. If you look at what's going on in technology, what's going on in businesses, there's a lot of moving things to the cloud, the power and sexiness of analytics. So there's an awareness that if I have this data, if I have this information, there are things I could be able to do, whether it's figuring out who's the audience that wants to buy something that I'm selling, whether it's, do I have products or services that I want to price appropriately? Do I want to better predict what the outcome of an event is, or equipment that needs maintenance or whatever? So there's lots of different reasons. I'd say the other reason for having a data strategy is people want to make sure if I'm investing and spending money, and a lot of companies spend a lot of money on technology, a lot of money on storage and data, am I really getting what I need to get out of it? I mean, in the idea of, I have a university with classrooms, well, I might have money available to go build a new building, but do I need to have a new building? Are the classrooms full? And obviously there's lots of reasons why universities do that. I'm not trying to pick on them. But the whole idea of, we're spending a lot of money. Let's make sure we have a plan that we're leveraging and utilizing this resource. And if I'm going down the path of evolving and moving my infrastructure or my operational systems, or even my analytic and reporting systems to the cloud, That inevitably means I've got to move data. So understanding what do we have in place, because I don't want to move stuff 15 times. And I need to make sure I've got what it is I need, where it needs to be, because everything has a cost. So I think what's made it top of mind is we have a lot of other things going on that if I put a plan in place, maybe I'll spend less money and maybe I'll do it more efficiently. And let's not lose track of the details.
Totally. I think a good follow-up there would be like, so if you think it's something that you'd like to execute, so something that you need a plan for, what would be one of those reasons, to refer back to your analogy, what would be the reason to build the new building? Would it be something along the lines of, needing more seats in this analogy?
So if you think about it, every time someone wants something new, someone's inevitably thinking, so how do we do that? The whole value of having a business strategy and thinking through those things in advance is you think through, well, what if I want to buy another company? What's involved? So you do the work to understand, if I want to buy a company, here's what the steps are before you buy a company. Mm-hmm. If I want to sell a new product, go into a new geography, what's the work that's involved so we can support that? The idea of a data strategy, what if we want to do more sophisticated analytics? What happens if we want to share data with a partner or someone else? Are we ready to do that? The simplest thing is, okay, I've got a new business strategy. I'm going to be expanding markets. I'm going to want to increase revenue. Or I want to change how I do things. Do I even have the data to support the company's business strategy? In fact, one of the things that I encourage in the class is that there's 3 audiences you should talk to. The company's business strategist, and understand what the company's business strategy is, so you understand, do we have the data to measure the effectiveness or success of where we're going from a business strategy perspective? The second is really business operations. Do I have the data that I need to measure what we're trying to do or what we think we want to do? It's one thing to say, well, I want to know who my top customers are, or I want to know the type of sales that we have or the popular products, but you should be thinking about those things in advance. And the premise of the strategy isn't to tie it down to the brass tacks, but it's really about understanding, okay, operationally, what do we want to accomplish? Do we know the next year we want to decrease what call center durations are? Do we want to have more of a self-service or a client-facing premise? Well, do we have that data? And then the third is, do the systems and applications people have the data they need to do what it is they want to do? I worked with a bank, and it was a very interesting discussion where the VP of IT said, Evan, I hear what you're saying, but we're pretty good with our budget. We have at any given time 15 to 20 concurrent maintenance and development activities. If I'm going to spend $1 doing what you're talking about, that means I have to take $1 away from someone else. So why do you think we need that? Because everything is covered financially. We have the business pay for it. And my remark is, well, what's happening now is every time someone asks for a new report or a new data set, you have 2 individuals spending 6 weeks inventorying data to find out what it is that someone wants and where to go find it, because you put nothing in place to be able to find those things. So when it comes to customer data, you actually have about 11 of those projects where you've got 2 people, 6 weeks going and finding that out because they don't know. And they do it again and again and again. Why do you want to have a data strategy? Because if you uncover that type of inefficiency, what you're saying is every time I'm walking uphill, I'm carrying 10 extra pounds. Let's get rid of the 10 pounds so you can do more quickly. So we deal with the inventory the first time. And then what do? Well, we don't have to do it again because they can now look it up. So really, the reason for the 3 reasons is to be more efficient, to make things simpler. So finding and dealing with the data isn't an obstacle in delivering the business value that you want. How do we do it quicker, faster, better?
Yeah. The obvious follow-up there is, what are the mistakes that people make along this journey?
So I don't know that any one activity is, oh my goodness, it's a catastrophe. I think a lot of it is, as we've on this path, what are the things that force people to take the long way around? I mean, we joke that the quickest path sometimes is between 2 points. But if you haven't done it, what often occurs is you tend to deal with things on a case-by-case basis. So what ends up happening is you fix something as an exception, and then you fix it a second time, and you fix it a third time. One of the most obvious things that comes out is, first and foremost, data sharing isn't established in the company as an obligation, as a responsibility. A lot of companies where people are very territorial about their systems and their job responsibilities and their data, and you can't even put this in place because you've got to go beg and plead to get the data so you can do your job.
Right.
It's like, I'm not coming to you because I want to go play golf or go swimming. It's, I need this data to do my job. And the systems person says, well, but you can't have it. So some of the mistakes are, there's certain, if you may want to call them policy or governance issues, that need to be put in place, which is data sharing is an obligation and a responsibility. We will share this as a corporate asset. And obviously there's some exceptions because of security and other stuff, but that needs to be laid down as rules. The other thing is the whole idea of understanding, what do we call this stuff? But your question was, so the mistakes, not establishing certain fundamental policies and rules. Some of the other mistakes are, it tends to be only one dimensional. I'm only focused on a data strategy for the data warehouse or for the reporting group or for the marketing. It absolutely makes sense to start small. But as you approach this, wait a second, how do we make sure that this is a corporate or a work group or business unit resource? So understand the context. The mistake is focusing on it as a project rather than the breadth of context that it should be. That's it. The third mistake, and I don't mean to characterize any of these as catastrophic, is it becomes a battle. I think we need to be very, very reasonable and sober about the issue that, you know something, not every organization can change immediately on a dime. So the thing to do when you're laying out a strategy is you lay out a plan and you focus on what is it that people need. And the mistake that is often made is it becomes a blue sky or a wish list. Don't do that. Make it what's broken. What do I need to fix? What's standing in the way? And start your data strategy from a place of, here's the things that will get out of the way that you already told me is a problem. The data inventory is a good example. Now, it wasn't about let's put data on every desktop. That's a nice to have. But if I can remove, was it 6 man weeks or 12 man weeks from every project, now the benefit becomes obvious. So focus on what are the pains and problems that we have, and let's let the data strategy gradually get into that. And then we do more of the aspirational goals.
Fantastic. If you could make one recommendation to a CIO or a CDO that would be interested in implementing something like this, what would that be?
I think I've already answered the question unknowingly. It's step one, make sure everybody in the organization knows that data sharing is an obligation. It's a business responsibility. I'd say there's one other thing I would probably add to that, which is institutionalize data usage responsibilities. We all know that in our companies, if we saw a copy of everybody's compensation and their title and their name, we wouldn't just go email and send it out. It would cause chaos. That's an unwritten rule. Unfortunately, what we've not done is put certain types of things in place so people know where they should be getting data and how they should be using it and what the rules are. If you work in a consumer market type company, you have to respect people's privacy. You have to look at their consent. So the idea that when I say data usage responsibilities is socialized and institutionalized, what are those rules? They're not about systems and logins and naming conventions. No, it's not that. It's, hey, do we have consumer data? Okay, what are the rules that we have to follow if we're using that? If I need to get data, who am I allowed to get that from? So I'm not breaking any rule that I don't know about. So those would be the two things. Data's a responsibility. Data sharing is an obligation responsibility. And two is, what are those data usage responsibilities?
Fantastic. One final question. I know you have a very busy day and in a week. You do happen to teach building a data strategy class here at TDWI. Why should someone take this class?
What I tell people is, if you're looking for what is that I include in a data strategy, who do I talk to? How do I organize the information? And how do I figure out how to make data strategy part of a business-driven roadmap? That's what the class shows. We share with you, here are the details that you include. Here's what goes into the plan. Here's how you build a roadmap. It's not what is a roadmap. We actually show you and go through workshop activities where you build one. And you see how that's done. And we actually picked some companies out of the thin air and show that actually public companies, show you the artifacts and give you the tactical knowledge of how to approach this. So you can understand, does my company have the will to change? The one last remark that I'll say, one of the things that we do in the class is we can help you build a data strategy, but part of it also is, how do you build stakeholdership? How do you build the audience that wants these things, so you identify what's valuable to the company, so it's not perceived as an academic endeavor, but instead it becomes a business value endeavor, and we show you how to do it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time coming through today. If people wanted to engage with you further, would there be a way for them to do so?
But my contact information is available in a number of different ways. If you go to the TW website, you can find me. My email address is readily available. It's very simple. It's evan@evanjlevy.com. So it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, TWI has a lot of mechanisms. If you go to the TW website, you can find out to access me.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Evan. Really
My pleasure. Terrific.